Hey everybody, Ethan here. Welcome to Hello Road. So it's time for yet another car spotting video. If you know me, you're well aware that I'm a huge fan of the cars from the 80s and the 90s. I'm also a huge fan of cars that are forgotten and unloved. And because we don't get a whole lot of rust here in Southern California, I usually come across quite a few weird, quirky, forgotten and unloved cars. And you might know that my favorite way of going car spotting is on a bike. And today I have an Engwe X20. It's a dual battery, long range e-bike. It's got full suspension, it's really comfortable. And the main reasons why I like to go car spotting on a bike is because I can get up really close without blocking the road, and I'll get a tiny bit of exercise. All right, enough blabbering on in my driveway. Let's go find some cool cars. Just like last video, lots of old rounded line Chevy trucks. This is a Sierra Classic 15 currently in use. It's being used to tow a trailer right now. It's nice to see an old truck like this still in use. It's funny that this GMC truck said classic on it when it was new, because this is very much a classic now. Was it a classic back then? I'm not really sure. I wish you could still get a truck like this. Single cab, a relatively long bed compared to the trucks of today. Yeah, this thing just doesn't exist anymore. We also need to bring back two-tone paint. Looks really good on this thing. A V6 Suzuki Grand Vitara. Ooh, this is the limited trim. It's got pretty fancy wheels, fancy two-tone paint, roof rails. This was also rebadged in the United States as the Chevrolet Tracker. It was also rebadged as a Mazda Proceed Levante, but not here in the States. Okay, off in the distance, I spot a third-gen 4Runner. It's in really great shape. This is probably my favorite generation 4Runner. Also sold as the Toyota Hilux Surf in Japan. So this was from 96 to 2002. I don't know what year this one is, but yeah, these things are great. All right, so somebody over here must have a passion for the Lexus LS. This flagship Lexus model from the 90s. This was also sold as the Toyota Celsior in Japan until Toyota finally decided to bring the Lexus brand name to Japan. So this is a first gen LS, so the model years would be 1990 to 1994, I think. This white one right here looks pretty sweet. I remember when these things first came out, I thought they kind of looked sort of like a Japanese Mercedes, but this design has really stood the test of time in my opinion. All right, here's a whole bunch of fun stuff all in a row. Oldsmobile Alero. So this is a late 90s, early 2000s General Motors product. I was never a huge fan of this car. I definitely kind of preferred the Malibu and Grand Am versions of this N-body. Yeah, and I just don't see many of these anymore because I think when they finally die, people just junk them. I don't think there's a whole lot of collectability here, but who knows? Maybe somebody out there is really into Aleros and wants to save them. Now, I won't spend too much time on this retro-styled Chevy SSR. This came out in the early 2000s. And just not my thing. I know these things had a ton of power. I don't know if they were that fast though. Yeah, I can't look at it, it hurts my eyes. But here's something really cool. Check out this yellow Firebird. Now, I will admit, I'm not a Firebird expert. Couldn't tell you what year this is. Maybe you could tell me. Vinyl top that looks like there's a whole bunch of rust underneath, but you know, that's kind of par for the course for a lot of these American cars from this era. Looks like the front end's a little bashed up, but still cool to see it on the road. And then of course, I'm a huge fan of Chevelles. I can't remember what year this is. Is this a 68? I could just always ask future Ethan, hey future Ethan, what year Chevelle is this? Hey, this is future Ethan. I'm sitting here at my editing desk, currently editing this video. I looked it up and it's actually a 69 Chevelle. So speaking of desks, I'm here at my old IKEA standing desk, currently lamenting about how wobbly and shaky it is. And it's not even in the standing position right now. Every time I slightly move, all of my car decorations roll around and I kind of feel like the desk is going to come crashing down. So I figured I'd take this opportunity to show you the new desk that I just got. Let's try one of those fancy YouTube edits, right? Here we go. Oh, cool, it worked. So this is the Flexispot E7 Pro Premium Standing Desk. One big benefit of this desk is that it's really stable. Even with all this gear, it feels solid. This thing can actually hold 440 pounds, which is pretty nuts. And my cars no longer look like they're going to crash to the ground. Now, I spend a ton of time at my desk editing videos, so for me, a standing desk is a must-have, so I don't spend my entire day just slumped in a chair. The Flexispot E7 Pro has 2 presets, so it will always adjust to your favorite positions. I went with this black frame and dark bamboo top, but there are a ton of other desktop options. There's also a bunch of nicely integrated accessories like this cable tray to hide all of your unsightly cables, and this angled power strip, super convenient. TechRadar rated this as their best standing desk for work from home. The Flexispot E7 Pro starts at $479, and you can grab one at flexispot.com. And if you want to save some money, be sure to use my discount code in the description below. Okay, future Ethan out, back to the past. All right, see what else we can come up with. All right, I spy a first generation Nissan Pathfinder. These things look so cool. I love these vehicles. I don't know if this is a four-wheel drive version. They did offer it in both four-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive. Back in the day when all of our SUVs were body on frame. Ooh, this has the V6, it's the LE, fancy. They also did that thing where they had the rear passenger door handle up a little bit higher to kind of make this look like a two-door. I don't know if that was to make it look a little bit more sporty. I think it kind of works. I have to say, this is a quite handsome SUV. A second gen Nissan Pathfinder. This is in pretty good shape. So this was in production for almost 10 years, from 95 to 2004. This looks like this is the facelifted version, I think. This was also rebadged as the Infiniti QX4, which I really liked. I don't know if you remember, but some of those had a tri-spoke wheel, which looked pretty rad. Once again, they continue with that theme of putting the passenger door handle up high. Sporty. Now, one of the big differences between the second gen Pathfinder and the first gen Pathfinder is that this one is actually a unibody construction as opposed to body on frame. I remember a lot of people complained about that at the time, but look where we are now. Crossover city, everything's unibody. All right, we're coming upon one of my least favorite car designs on the planet, this Malibu right here. So this is a 6th generation Malibu, 2004 to 2007. And then I think they sold it for one more year in 2008, called it the Malibu Classic because this body style, I mean, can't get any more classic than this, right? Oh, I mean, the front end of this car is just hideous. If you like this car, more power to you, but I can't get down with it. So I remember reading back in the day that they did some market research for this design and it tested very poorly with audiences. And GM just said, we'll stick with what we got. And I guess it was fine because they sold quite a few of these things. So who knows, are these things reliable? Let me know in the comments. But yeah, oh my God, just so ugly. All right, we got a Nissan Hardbody coming up here. Now, I think every single time I've gone car spotting, I've found a Nissan Hardbody. This one's in a nice green color. These are just all over Los Angeles, continually getting used for all sorts of things, being put to work. Quite reliable. It's a little banged up, but that's what you'd expect from a truck that is 30-something years old, still getting used. And then these Mercury Grand Marquis, these are also everywhere. I think I found like 3 in my last car spotting video. This one must be the base model. It's got wire wheel covers. So I mentioned in my last video, I'm not an expert on the generations of these. I think this is a 2nd gen, so somewhere between a 92 and a 97. Am I right or am I wrong? But yeah, these things are super durable. I see them everywhere, still on the road, still being used. I know this Panther platform is ancient, but it's a shame they don't still make it. Oh, this is pretty cool, this lowered 6th gen Civic. These are great little cars. They last forever, easy to mod, fun to drive, super lightweight, not a ton of power, but in my opinion, these are definitely a classic. So what are these, like 95 or 96 to 2000, something like that? Yeah, I dig them. Speaking of Panthers, yet another one. This is one of the later ones that got amber turn signals in the back. It's a little bit smashed up, but I think a Crown Vic should be a bit smashed up, right? These are the cars that were used to do pit maneuvers over countless police chases. They can take the abuse. Yeah, I think I need to own one of these one day. Sell off one car. What car should I sell off to buy a Crown Vic? Hey, look, somebody bought a VinFast. I actually just rode right by this without even noticing. It's certainly not a bad looking car. I just know that it got some pretty terrible reviews when it first arrived here in the United States. I guess I just wonder if they've improved these since those early terrible reviews. VinFast VF8. Doesn't look bad, I mean, for a crossover. All right, check out this really clean 6th generation Honda Accord in beige, or I guess they might call this champagne or gold or something like that. And we did have some really bright, fantastically good looking paint colors in the 90s, but that started to fade away towards the late 90s. So this 6th generation was like late 90s, early 2000s. And quite honestly, I remember really disliking this design when it first came out. I just thought it was so boring. You know, the Camry from this year was pretty boring too. But I guess thanks to the passage of time and a little sprinkle of nostalgia, I've started to really like these. It's surprising, this is the first street parked Miata that I've come across in my few car spotting videos that I've done. This is an NA Miata, which looks like it's had some body work done to it. Got the original wheels. Looks like somebody cares for it. It's got a new top. Yeah, Miata is always the answer. That's one of those sayings that I agree with. And check this out. Yet another Crown Vic with Mustang wheels. Looks pretty sick. All right, so this Corolla is a bit banged up, but it still exists. Somebody's still driving it every single day. Now this is the E100 Corolla. It was sold here in the States from 93 to 97. And while these were built in Japan and Canada and other places, they were also built here in California. I know these Corollas don't get a whole lot of love, but I really like this design. It's very clean, very simple. These things are incredibly reliable. Yet another Panther platform car. This looks like it's an ex-cop car or maybe an ex-taxi, not sure which. Looks like it's been in a little bit of a smasher, but like I said, these things can take the abuse. And if you really did want to replace that bumper, it's super cheap because parts for these cars are not expensive. Yeah, I think I'm sold. I think I need to buy one of these things. And I just got my fleet down to 6 cars. Oh well. Now, I mentioned this in my last car spotting video, but old Chevy trucks are all over Los Angeles. This one is in really nice shape. Check out this Custom Deluxe 20. This is a rounded line Custom Deluxe in a really nice kind of sparkly bluish gray color. Looks like it was repainted at some point in its life. This truck is just such an iconic shape. Kind of feel like I gotta buy one of these at some point in my life too. All right, so this is a car that I really like. Mazda Protege 5. This is one of those vehicles that I just don't see that often anymore, but it's a good looking little car. So built sometime between 98 and 2003. And these cars were rebadged as a bunch of other things. Ford Lynx, Ford Laser, Ford Tierra. I'm not sure about the wagon version, but the sedan version was. Now here in the States, the sedan was also available in a Mazda Speed version. I know somebody that had one and he went through like 3 engines. So maybe not exactly the most reliable thing in the world, but apparently it was a lot of fun to drive when it was working. All right, so here's an underrated little vehicle, the first generation Honda CR-V. Look at a new Honda CR-V and just see how much these vehicles have grown. This is smaller than like the Honda HR-V from today. Also compare this to some of the new SUVs and crossovers for sale today. So much glass, really easy to see out of. It's just a really good size. Low hood, very good packaging in this car. Very upright shape in the back so you can fit a lot of cargo in it. So this is somewhere between a 95 and a 2001. And back then, yes, you could get this with a 5-speed manual transmission. Maybe not a classic by today's standards, but definitely I think it could be at some point. I'm surprised it's still on the road. It's a Cadillac Seville SLS with the 32-valve North Star V8. Now, if you've seen any of my videos about the Cadillac that I owned, you'll be well aware that the North Star V8 wasn't exactly a reliable engine, had head gasket issues for some of the years. Some years were better than others, but the head gasket issues weren't as simple as just swapping them out. No, you had to like replace the head bolts. It was a big production. I'm surprised this thing is still on the road. Who knows, might just be sitting here, although it does have current registration, which I'm very surprised about. Maybe this year North Star wasn't as bad as the other years. Check out that roof. Now that is something an 80-year-old from 1994 would have loved. Lots of chrome on those wheels, on the trim, on the grille. Pretty fancy. I spot a Previa. It's in really rough shape, but it exists. Now, I mentioned in my last video, Previas are everywhere. They're either reliable or people love them and just keep them fixed up or something. I'm not really sure why there are so many, but yeah, they are everywhere here in Los Angeles. And a lot of times I see people take the seats out of them and just kind of use them as work trucks. I'm guessing that's what this is. But yes, this is the coveted supercharged version. They put that supercharged 4-cylinder in here because as a mid-engine vehicle, they could not fit a 6-cylinder under there. And without the supercharger, it was a bit underpowered. All right, so here's a late Radwood era Camry. Now these things don't get a lot of love. In fact, for a long time, I was never really a huge fan of this Camry either. Just kind of a really plain, simple, boring shape, especially those taillights. But all it took was the passage of time to get me to kind of like these things. This one in particular is in really nice shape. I don't know if it's been repainted at some point. It's kind of got an interesting sort of maroonish brown color going on here. So this is like somewhere between a 97 and a 2001. I kind of like them now. Another 2nd-gen Pathfinder. Those things are everywhere too. Another Camry XV10, so this is like a 92 through a 96. These are everywhere too. This one's getting regular use. The paint has seen better days, but you know, there's not really a whole lot of collectors of these cars, so they'd continue to get used as just normal everyday transportation. But I'd say give it a few more years and people are gonna start to really covet these old Camrys. I love them. Wow, check out this El Camino. This thing looks pretty sick. It's got IROC wheels, hood scoop. I think we might have to call this a Hell Camino. It's got a later front end, like 86, 87 front end, but those are all interchangeable. So who knows what year this is. A lot of people like to take the front ends off of the earlier models and throw newer model front ends on these, or sometimes you'd see them with Monte Carlo front ends. That thing is sick though. This is just a mullet on wheels. I love it. I've never really paid attention to how interesting that rear window is. This curved glass on the rear window. It's pretty neat. Bring the El Camino back, I say. Ooh, a Dodge Roadtrek 190 Popular. Now it seems like this Roadtrek brand used Dodges maybe exclusively, I'm not really sure, but every single Roadtrek that I've ever seen has been a Dodge. Kind of a cool, sort of easier to drive RV, because it's based on a van, but it's not gigantic. Oh wow, take a look at this Celica. So what we've got here is a 7th generation Celica, and this one's a GTS and is powered by that 2ZZ GE engine, which was co-developed with Yamaha and had a astronomically high, like, I don't know, was it like 8,000 RPM redline? Something like that. It was pretty ridiculous. Correct me if I'm wrong, it was something really high. So variations of that engine was also used in the Matrix XRS, Corolla XRS, and even the Lotus Elise. This one has the TRD badge on the back, so I'm guessing this might be the action package because it's got this aggressive bodywork and that big spoiler. It's not my favorite looking Celica, but this one's pretty unique. All right, here's something I don't see every day. 2 first-generation 4Runners parked side by side. One looks a little bit more rough than the other, but it's nice to see these still on the road. This black one though, this looks sick. Toyota's graphics in the 80s were on point. This looks amazing. Such a cool looking SUV. I remember back in the day when these things were on the road more frequently, a lot of people would take those tops off and just drive around with the tops off the back, kind of like Jeep style. And the funny thing is, boxy SUVs like this are making a comeback. The new Land Cruiser's kind of a retro boxy style. The new Lexus GX is kind of a retro boxy style. I'm glad because I really like these boxy vehicles. Oh wow, I haven't seen one of these in a long time. Mazda 323. This is maybe somewhere between an 86 to, I don't know, 89. These are just gone. I don't think they sold that many here in the United States, and I'm surprised that this one still exists. Doesn't look like it's being driven anymore though. Pretty cool. Yet another 3rd generation 4Runner. It's got the body colored bumpers, body colored wheel arches, running boards. It's pretty sweet. It's a nice color too. It's got a hood scoop too. Fancy. Oh my gosh, check out this Ford Torino. All right, so I'm the first to admit that I know nothing about the Ford Torino. Thinking this is like a 1970, if I had to guess. I'm not exactly sure, correct me if I'm wrong. Back when I had a thing for cars from the 60s and 70s, I always kind of preferred GMs. But I gotta say, this thing looks pretty sweet. All right, so every time I go car spotting, it's always a different batch of cars. Sometimes it's stuff from the 60s, sometimes it's stuff from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Sometimes they're forgotten and weird. Sometimes they're just sort of normal appliances that you forgot existed. But I think we came up with a pretty interesting batch today, considering we just picked a random neighborhood in Los Angeles. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, please consider subscribing. If you want to help support the channel, please buy a Hello Road t-shirt at helloroad.tv/shop. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're well, and I'll see you soon.